I believe that I have found possibly the clearest proof that these buildings are much older than we are told, and clearly built by a much more advanced civilization that was here before our current timeline that we aren't being told about. We have the Panera Temple, where the trees, the grass, the weeds, the rest of it are totally overgrowing and covering the structure, which would take decades of zero maintenance, which would also mean that in order for this story to be true, the one that they're telling us, they would have had to build the building and then left it immediately after without it even ever being used. So when I tell you the mainstream story, remember this. This photo was taken in the 1800s by James Ferguson. This is the Panera Temple. And when we take a look at the mainstream narrative, it's going to prove that they have no idea how to explain this one. I hope you're all ready to have some fun today. Welcome to episode 54 of My Lunch Break. I hope you're all having a great day. And if you're new, welcome. And I want to thank all of our sponsors over on Patreon. Thank you to FlatEarthDave.com. You can check out his app. I'll put the link in the description, and you can use my referral code, MLB. The app is awesome. It shows a lot of videos that are really hard to find. They've got them all in great playlists. He also has My Lunch Break on the homeschool section of the app, which is really cool. Thank you for that. Thank you to Rebecca K., Don Gaston, Christopher Arietta, The Lady Lacey Show, David and Sherry Ferguson, Edwin Johnson, Chuck Templeton, Joy Lee, Leslie Pipkins, PNR, Stephanie Nolan, The Burlesons, Suez KC, Dan Woodall, Corey Franks, Dale, DJ Clicktrack, Edward and Brianna, Jacob Law, Jim Ribley and Christine Duggan, Kyle Glascock, Maddie B, Tim Rack, Two Spirit, William Richard Jeffries V, Zach Bronco, PKTFnews.org, Regna Saturna, Emerald H, 3D6.space, Attila Power, Buck Suey, Dakota Dunn, D-Rob33, Eric Martinez, Ivan Apoctoli, Jesse DeLeon, Jim Bro, Kit Kat, Patriots Progeny, Roy Schoenholtz, Roz Matthews, Shiba Shaba in the Darkness, Spartan Oneg, and VKH Bonner. You guys are all awesome and helping this channel out a lot. A massive, perfect temple located in Pattaya, India. And today I want to show you just how horrible the mainstream historians are at their job. They tell us that the palace is reported to have been built at some point between 1823 and 1895, at some point. But they have no idea. But when we go back to episode 50 and read the narrative about this arch, they knew all about the history and told us that it was constructed in the second half, not the first half, the second half of the 3rd century BC. Because they, of course, know all about the negative 300s, but have zero idea what's going on between 1823 and 1895. Can you see how insane this is? They can't have both. Either you know what's going on or you don't. So it's reported to have been built. Reported by who? Did it get reported by Ron Burgundy? Who is the reporter, for one? And for two, their report is pretty terrible, giving us a 72-year gap. And on top of all of this, the photo has the number 73 written on it, which of course could mean anything and could be wrong, but let's pretend it's the year 1873, since remember, James Ferguson, the man who actually took this photo, died in 1886. This would make sense. This would mean that the mainstream history is completely wrong, and there is no way that it could have been built at any point after 1873, since we have a picture of it here. And it definitely couldn't have been built after Ferguson's death in 1886. Yet they tell us that it could have been built in 1895. It's incredible. And a clear lie, since we have a photo of it and proof that it was here long before that, and found with nature growing all over it. And here it sits today. So clearly they have uncovered more from the surrounding area that was also buried by nature. And when you zoom in on the building, this was something that was constructed in the 1800s by Donkeys Incorporated. And we can see that this is definitely the same building with the same 3 arches at the bottom. It's absolutely incredible. So I wonder if this is the way that a lot of these old world buildings were found, with trees and grass all over them. But we just never had a photo of it. And this gets even more interesting when we take a look at this place from the sky. This was not a random building sometime in 1800. And I want to make that point very clear. We have a water system that has 90-degree angles surrounding this building. Not only that, but there are multiple temples. It honestly looks like a fortress. So we have these other structures within this area, with this one being the biggest of them all. And we have some damage done to the side here, which I wonder if it depicted something before they destroyed it that they did not want us to see. Now I'm gonna drop this view down on Google Earth and show you the detail of this place, and show you that this is obviously not from the last 200 years. We have seen so many buildings from the USA that were supposedly built in the last 200 years, or even in our last episode when we showed the Windsor Castle, which was built 1,000 years ago, supposedly, which is in perfect shape. In my opinion, this building that we're looking at today is thousands of years old, possibly covering not just one population reset, but many. I don't think the 1800s were the first reset. I think that whoever controls the resets fully understands how to execute them and have perfected them over time. They've tweaked them, giving us back less and less technology each time that was once here before the new timeline is revealed, which is why our architecture gets worse and worse. In 100 years, 99% of our homes with plastic siding without maintenance would basically be gone, which in my opinion is exactly what they want. So when the next reset comes around, if there is one, there's no proof that we were ever here. Here we have the Manitowoc County Courthouse, located in Wisconsin, where we have a building that is much older than we were told. And if you've seen the first 53 episodes, you'll enjoy this. The current courthouse is the third courthouse to serve Manitowoc County. The first courthouse was built in 1839. 13 years later, we are told that in 1852, this one burned down in a fire. Of course it did. Because 99% of the old world buildings, as we know, hold a fire story. The fire story is the nod to the hidden group, in my opinion. That this building is from the previous civilization, and we did not construct this building in our current timeline. In my opinion, this is the only courthouse that has ever been here, yet they tell us the second courthouse was all done and wrapped up in 1857 on the same site as the present courthouse. Of course it was. This is the same courthouse. In just 48 years, we are told that this one was outdated and needed to be replaced because in the 1800s, they could be picky and build a new building whenever they wanted. A time before the power tool. They could just knock buildings down and replace them very easily. Oh wait, no, they didn't knock the second one down? The second courthouse was moved a block to the south. So now they're just moving buildings around. After going through the trouble of moving this brand new courthouse that was supposedly too old, they demolish it to make way for a jail and a sheriff's department. This is incredible. Does this sound shady or what? Here we go. The courthouse that is a masterpiece and will be here forever was built in just 2 years, in 1905 to 1907, by another company with a guy and his sons, of course, because they can't seem to leave the sons part out. And then we get the old severe storm damaged the glass. The old world dome was destroyed by some rain. Sure it was. And then they rebuilt it with stainless steel, of course. I would love to know what that dome really looked like before it was destroyed. And what was it made of before they destroyed it? And what kind of artwork did it have? And all of this is not even the craziest part. The guy and his son's construction company were so good at their job that they could knock this palace out in less than 24 months, over 120 years ago. So their resumes should be long listed and hold other masterpieces. Right? Wait, no? What is this? George Rickman and Sons Construction Company only constructed 2 buildings in their entire existence, and both of them in the year 1906. So not only were they knocking out 2 palaces, so they say, but they were also doing it at the exact same time, and then never built anything ever again. How is that believable at all? Over 120 years ago. Well, it isn't. Especially when they were located in different states. One located in Benton, Iowa. The other one located in northern Wisconsin, which is over a 5-hour drive in 2024, over 300 miles apart. Yet they are laying the cornerstone supposedly in late 1905, mid-October. and completing it basically that same year in 1906. And if you're on the fence and you haven't seen the fire narrative before this episode, get ready to have your mind blown. We already know that the Manitowoc County Courthouse holds the fire narrative and was supposedly built by the same people in the same year. The Benton County Courthouse, the first courthouse where the county officers occupied 2 rooms. In the supposed unfinished second floor, before the building was destroyed by a fire the following year. Now, the third courthouse was built in December of 1856. The second and third courthouses were built on the same location as the present courthouse, the fourth courthouse on this site. At which point can we all agree that the mainstream narrative of our supposed history is a complete lie? It is the exact same story over and over and over, all over the world, where we get multiple courthouses on the same exact site, and they all light up in fire somehow, and they all have the same architect and his sons, with 0 details ever given to us on the actual construction process. And then you go look at the finished product, and it's a masterpiece, something that will last forever, and something that we don't recreate today, and something that was supposedly built in 1 year or less, when we know that even in 2024, this would be impossible. And we have never seen this happen. And we have so many more resources than they did, supposedly. And then whenever we're told that they're gonna go renovate one of these buildings, the renovation process takes multiple years and an incredible amount of manpower. And it only took the 1800s and early 1900s people 1 year or less. It doesn't make any logical sense when you really think about it. The Benton County Courthouse never had 3 previous courthouses, in my opinion. This is the only courthouse, and these stories are just that. They're stories. They're not true. A building that features a 112-foot central tower. It contains a 4-faced illuminated clock, a 1,500-pound B-flat bell, and is topped with a dome. The 2-story structure sits on a raised basement. All of this, we are told, was built in a year or less, while the builder was off in northern Wisconsin at the exact same time. And both buildings holding basically the exact same narrative, where they have multiple buildings on the same site, and both buildings holding the fire narrative. Can you see the lie very clearly now? And are you ready for the most eye-opening part of this story? The part that gives this all away, that this is mathematically impossible for it to be true, considering everything that we have talked about to this point. Here we go. The Manitowoc County Courthouse was supposedly completed in 1905, when the Benton County Courthouse started that same exact year and was completed in 1906. And the Manitowoc County Courthouse, again, holds its fire story in 1852. What are the odds that the Benton County Courthouse stood unfinished until the exact same year of 1852, when the county officers occupied 2 rooms in the unfinished building, when it was destroyed by a fire the following year? The fire narrative is the key and the nod that these buildings were built by the previous civilization. When you know what you're looking for, it becomes extremely clear that the narrative is a lie. And these buildings have a hidden past that we are not being told about. Both fires happening a year apart, having the same builder characters with sons attached to the name, having the same year of construction. Both narratives having multiple courthouses located on the exact same site, located over 300 miles apart, built with perfection, and both lasting forever. And we all remember that George Rickman and his sons only built 2 buildings in their entire existence, which would never hold up in court, since it wasn't like they were out there building 7-Elevens. They built 2 massive palaces with perfection and fast. They would be the most sought-after construction company in the world today, based on what they did. And they did it all with 0 formal training, which was standard back in the 1800s, according to the mainstream historians. So 2 buildings for them, both in the exact same year, totally believable, no. And then we have the supposed architect, Bell and Detweiler, where you will all enjoy to hear that Bell and Detweiler also only constructed 2 buildings in their entire existence. Also, in the exact same year, And both buildings just happen to be palaces that last forever. How can this be possible? You would think that these two would team up for a few more projects, just for old time's sake. And maybe build some houses for some people. Maybe a local business would be interested in hiring them. No? It never happened again. Just two massive buildings in the exact same year. And then they both call it a career. If I'm being totally honest, this isn't even close to possible. This is honestly incredible that this is what we've been told. And this is the explanation for these buildings. How have we all just allowed this for so long? Could you imagine today that Bell and Sons, with zero backstory, both knocking out these courthouses and state capitol buildings in the exact same year? One in Iowa, the other one in South Dakota, and zero information on their training processes. Every architect will tell you, and every engineer will tell you, that this is impossible. Where are the materials coming from? How many men did they have working on the project? Were the workers also trained somewhere? Or were they just local prisoners, like we've been told so many times? And then after all of this, they get these buildings done with perfection, and nobody ever hires them again. With nothing on their resume. They were hired for two palaces in the exact same year. It just isn't logical. And both the architect and the construction company definitely would have built something else after these two incredible buildings. All right, to start this bonus off, I want to update you all on the California episode, where we went there and got some awesome stuff. We're still putting that together. There was a lot of stuff, so we might have to make that into 2 episodes back to back. I'm excited to share that with you all. And before we get started on the bonus, I want to say thank you to all the badge members, the Patreons, and every single subscriber. You are all awesome. And looks like we have a few people that are getting close to the 6-month badge. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. All right, so here we have the Saints Peter and Paul Church with a location that you would think that they might want to change, since it is a church. Located at 666 Filbert Street, San Francisco, California. I mean, what is going on here? When I saw this, I couldn't believe my eyes. This is the address that they give a church? Really? So not only is the address bizarre, so is the history, where we're told that this is the second church on this site. The first one being built in 1884 and was destroyed by an earthquake 22 years later. So the next one was built on the same site of 666 Filbert Street. And of course, when you dig deeper, you get more than just an earthquake. You get the fire narrative and the nod that this building is from the old world, where the church succumbed to the destructive forces of the 1906 earthquake and subsequent fire, leading to them demolishing it. How long did it take to construct the first one? Who was the architect? The construction company? How many men did it take to build the first one? Because this is the first church that is here today. This is the only church that's ever been on this site of 666 Filbert Street, San Francisco. And we know that now. And we also know that they want to destroy these buildings and have for a very long time, because these buildings give it all away. That the narrative isn't logical. This supposed second church, which we know is the first church, but the second one, we are told, was completed in 1924. 2 years later, in 1926 and 1927, St. Peter's and Paul Church was bombed 4 times. What were they bombing and destroying inside and on the outside of this church that they didn't want us to see? Dates? Artwork of the old world? The bombs were always placed at night, and no one was ever around to see what was going on. Bombs would go off every few months. And for the clear giveaway, and to end this episode properly, that this, in my opinion, was a planned operation. Another bomb went off inside the church, January 1927. Though there was a police officer monitoring the church, he was unable to catch the bomber.